Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something that has honestly intimidated almost every single aspiring creator out there at some point: professional editing software. Seriously, we're going to decode the workspace, strip away all that confusion, and give you the absolute confidence to navigate any editing program like a pro. Let's get right into it. So, you know that feeling when you open up Adobe Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut, or even the desktop version of CapCut for the very first time? Yeah, you probably felt an immediate wave of panic, right? There are dozens of buttons, countless little windows and panels crammed into literally every corner of your screen. It feels totally chaotic. It kind of feels like you need an engineering degree just to make a single cut. Well, I want to validate that frustration right now, because I'm about to share a massive secret that's going to instantly change how you look at that workspace.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the universal workspace. Second, the anatomy of the interface. Third, the editing workflow. And finally, professional organization secrets.
All right, Section 1, Universal Workspace, Different Software. Let's look at the overarching concept that unites all these editing programs.
Okay, here is the big secret I promised you. Almost every professional editing program out there is organized in the exact same basic way. Seriously, yes, the colors might be a bit different and the buttons might have slightly different little icons, but the core layout, it remains totally identical. Understanding this universal workspace gives you incredibly transferable skills. So you aren't just learning Premiere or DaVinci, you are literally learning the universal language of video editing.
I absolutely love this quote from our source material. Think of it like learning the layout of a kitchen before you start cooking. I mean, it hits the nail on the head, right? You wouldn't start chopping vegetables and searing a steak if you had no idea where the fridge, the stove, or the knives were kept. Editing is the exact same way. Before we start shaping our stories, we just need to know where our tools live.
Which brings us to Section 2, Interface Anatomy, the essential areas. We're going to break down the 5 main areas you actually need to care about.
The very first area to know is the project panel. Simply put, this is your library. It's your digital filing cabinet. Before any clip can make it into your final video, it has to live here first. It's the ultimate starting point for every single piece of media you're going to use in your project. So what exactly goes into this digital filing cabinet? Well, pretty much everything. This panel holds your raw videos, your audio files, sound effects, photos, any graphics you've created, and your sequences. Basically, if it's an ingredient for your final video meal, it lives right here in the project panel.
And that brings us to our next tool, the source monitor. Once you find a clip in your project panel, you don't just, throw the whole thing into your video. Instead, you open it in the source monitor. This is your preview window. It lets you watch that raw footage, find the absolute best moments, and mark exactly where you want the clip to begin and end before you ever commit it to your final edit. It's a real game changer for keeping things clean.
Now, from the source monitor, those chosen clips move down to the timeline. The timeline is the absolute heart of editing. This is your digital editing table. It's the blank canvas where you actually build your scenes, arrange your clips side by side, trim your shots, add your music, and, well, truly construct the final story.
But while you're building that story on the timeline, you need to actually see what you're doing, right? That is where the program monitor comes in. Now, don't confuse this with the source monitor. Remember, the source monitor is just for previewing individual raw clips. The program monitor, on the other hand, reflects the timeline. It's the final preview window showing you exactly what your audience will see when they hit play on your finished video. Every edit, every text effect, every single transition shows up right here.
All right, moving off to the side of your timeline, you're going to find the Tools panel. This is a collection of simple but incredibly powerful tools used for tasks like selecting clips, trimming edges, cutting clips in half, or zooming in on your timeline. Now, take a deep breath. You do absolutely not need to worry about mastering every single one of these tools today. The most important thing right now is just knowing where this toolkit is located.
The last crucial piece of anatomy here is the playhead. This is the vertical line that physically moves from left to right across your timeline. Think of it as your ultimate compass. It shows you exactly where you are, which specific frame is currently displaying in the program monitor, and exactly where your next edit is going to happen. Nearly every action you take in an editing program begins with placing this playhead in the correct position.
Okay, so now that we know the anatomy, let's look at how it all works together in Section 3, the editing workflow, logical and repeatable. Let's see how these modular pieces connect in sequence.
Regardless of the software you choose, editing is universally built around these core steps. First, you import your raw clip into the project panel. Next, you preview that clip in the source monitor to find the best part. Then, you drag that best part down to the timeline. You watch how it looks in the program monitor, and finally, you move your playhead on the timeline to trim or adjust the clip as needed. This simple 1-to-5 flow is literally the engine of all professional editing.
With that workflow in mind, let's transition to Section 4, Pro Organization, Secrets to Success. Let's take a look at how the experts actually utilize this workspace differently from beginners.
Now this is really fascinating. Notice the stark contrast in mindset here. On the one hand, beginners tend to try and memorize every single button before they even start. They dump all their files into one giant messy folder, which inevitably leads to a super slow workflow and lots of random clicking. But professionals? They do the exact opposite. They focus on learning the workspace flow. They rely on neatly organized folders, clean timeline navigation, and they just have a confident understanding of where their media is at all times.
So, the absolutely crucial point to take away from this is this undeniable truth. Professional editors aren't fast just because they've memorized every single keyboard shortcut. Nope, they are fast because they stay incredibly organized. A clean project inside a familiar workspace saves hours of tedious work and it drastically reduces mistakes. Good editing doesn't start with flashy effects, guys. It starts with good organization.
By mastering these 5 universal building blocks, the project panel, source monitor, timeline, program monitor, and tools panel, you've essentially just learned the core language of every major editing platform on the market today. Which brings us to the ultimate question. Now that the interface is no longer an obstacle, what story are you going to build with it today? Let that spark your curiosity as you open your program of choice. In our next explainer, we're going to build on this confidence by diving deep into how professionals organize massive amounts of media. Until then, keep learning, keep organizing, and I'll catch you next time on The Explainer.